So we got a good gist of the kind of absolute dystopian security state that the UK exists as right now. And I thought we would continue that theme because Carl sent through to me a Twitter thread which just catalogued a lot of the problems that we've experienced in the UK with legislation that actively disadvantages normal, everyday, hardworking people and makes it illegal to be normal. In the classic sense that communism is when freaks and ugly, resentful,
Wait, what
spiteful
is normal?
mutants
That's a
make it
bad
illegal to be
term.
normal. Normal is the general state of affairs that most people find themselves in. It's not really that quantifiable, but we all know what we mean when we say something like that. So don't get tricksy with me, all right? Okay? Listen, I know you're not from here, but we have certain standards in the UK that we like to adhere to, all
I
right?
see with the police standards.
Yeah,
Recruitment.
actually, to be fair, for throwing that out at you, I could probably be arrested for a hate crime now. So
I won't. I won't say. You
he's
know.
going to hold it in his back pocket, though. Just watch him. But yes, so recently, Josh did a contemplations video on the website talking about Europe, and that was with you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I believe mostly it was just finding various funny ways to insult the different nations of Europe because people in Britain and the Europeans, we've got a bit of bants going between us. You know, we've all been at war with one another at one point or another. So we could just have a bit of fun. Maybe we've oppressed you at this point, but you've oppressed us at this point. It's all in the past, rear view mirror kind of business.
We need, yeah. It's a lovely conversation I had with Josh, and it's very fun. Just watch it.
There you go. So watch that. And I thought we'd zoom in because this is a general overview of Europe. But let's zoom in a little bit so you can understand England, which is the place of, have you got a license for that? Have you got a license for doing anything? Have you got a license for that tweet there, son? Ooh, don't know about that one, eh? Et cetera, et cetera. And I've covered a number of times the kinds of legislation that exists within the UK that really empowers police forces, bureaucrats, and the government to enact petty tyranny and anarcho-tyranny over the main population. One of the big ones that I've spoken about in the past was when I was talking about the Equalities Act, which I provocatively titled this one, Abolish the Equalities Act, because of a number of reasons. There's the 2006 and the 2010 one, just to go over a little bit of it. Basically, there is the European Equalities and Human Rights Commission that this empowers to be able to take anybody or any organization to court with legal action without there being an actual victim involved in the process. So whereas before you would have had to say that there is a victim involved in some kind of discrimination, now all that happens is the EHRC can show up, say, you're not diverse enough, therefore you're discriminating, therefore we're going to take you to court over it. So there's that. I also got some interesting figures here. I didn't include it in the website, but on because I found this article only just before we came on. So I'll just read this from my own laptop here. It's from an unheard article called Conservatives Should Amend the Equality Act, Not Abolish It. So he takes a bit of a different tack to me, but the author in here writes, when they complain about the Equality Act, they're usually angry about specific clauses. For instance, there's Section 149, which introduced a public sector equality duty. This obliged public bodies to encourage persons who share a relevant protected characteristic, because the Equalities Act establishes loads of different protected characteristics from religion to race to sexuality to gender, etc., etc., none of which generally privilege anybody who could be considered a white Englishman, for instance. But, you know, that's how all of this legislation ends up going, isn't it? But it encouraged persons who share a relevant protected characteristic to participate in public life or in any other activity in which participation by such persons is disproportionately low.
Let me say, they took that literally. The protected characteristics that, you know, the police doesn't protect you if you're not part of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just
Bob on right there. Also, disproportionately low. Disproportionate as to what? To what? Just what you imagine in fairy tale land should be the representation of a particular people in some kind of business. If you get a business where, oh, you've not got enough black women in that business, is it maybe because black women just haven't been applying, or maybe the ones that have applied haven't been qualified, or maybe didn't go through the test well or the interview process well? No, it's just because you're racist, because you don't have enough black women, therefore we're going to take you to court over it. They've done this with a few businesses. And he carries on saying, subsequent regulations introduced by conservative ministers toughened Section 149, imposing on public bodies a requirement to publish measurable equity objectives, including concrete steps to strengthen diversity and extensive annual reports on progress. This effectively meant that every public body, from your local hospital trust to the Royal Navy, had to hire a diversity bureaucracy. What followed was predictable. According to, the number of diversity and inclusion roles surged 71% by 2020, between 2015 to 2020. So that's a 71% increase in useless bureaucrats who, realistically speaking, should probably either be doing a different job or are too useless to be employed at all. If the best that you can manage in life is that you are a bureaucrat working in a diversity department somewhere, I'm sorry, you're useless. You just are. Hate to break it to you. According to LinkedIn, the UK now has twice as many D&I workers per capita as any other country. Twice as many. That's a lot of public money going to funding these professional useless people. Congratulations, UK. We did it. Diversity is solved. Racism has been solved because of this.
It's not just useless, it's harmful.
It's absolutely
because they want to justify their positions. They create problems.
Yeah, exactly. They have to find things to justify what they're doing.
You can look into the guidelines they provide for this, because in this segment, I looked at one of the booklets that you can find online that says, okay, in practice, how does this work? One of the examples they gave for disproportionate action against people of a protected characteristic was, say you're running a hairdresser's and you want a dress code that means the women who work at that hairdresser's, to display the quality of work that you will produce for your customers, have to wear your hair in a certain way.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty reasonable thing, right? Because you want to advertise it in every aspect of the job so that you can say, look, we're the best hairdressers. Look at how amazing all of our women's hair is. That is discriminatory because, of course, what if you hire someone who might wear a hijab? Therefore, you can get prosecuted under the law for this. So once again, companies have had to produce ridiculous level, they've predictably had to create these gigantic compliance departments, which mean that every aspect of their company is past a certain size. I think it's if you've got 50 employees or more, everyone falls under this kind of legislation. So they've had to create gigantic compliance departments so that they're able to meet all of these ridiculous demands. Because at any time, the HRC might come knocking at your door and come out with a hefty lawsuit because they've decided that you're discriminating against someone, somewhere, maybe.
So can you not have dress standards at work and kind of...
If they can be interpreted as being discriminatory, yes. It's stupid.
Yeah. Surely it's down to the company how they want their staff to present to a certain level.
Well, it's against the law. That's just, we don't live in a free country. The UK is not a free nation.
Yeah, it's true.
But what is, let's say, what's a dress code that is offensive?
Well, pick one out of your pocket. You can think of anything. Somebody,
I see what happened
somebody can find a way to make anything discriminatory.
I see what happened here. Someone was hired as a diversity officer and was entrusted with the job of, let's say, finding non-offensive dress codes. And this person has started coming up with ideas, of what kind of dresses and clothes are offensive.
And then what? They managed to get it passed through law?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean...
that's exactly what they want to do.
The end state of this is we're all in burlap sacks.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that can be neutral enough, and inexpressive enough so that it can be considered non-discriminatory. Then we've got things like we mentioned before in the last segment, like the Public Orders Act, which that poor girl got prosecuted under, or at least got arrested for, because the Public Orders Act is ridiculous and sets all manner of speech regulations to make it so that if anything that you say could potentially be considered racist or offensive to somebody, then they can, including the fact that I think under that it also I'll go through this thread. So this thread, as I said, has a lot of examples of the way this ends up working out in practice. So, for instance, this is back from February, but all of these examples still apply. So, Prevent, who were originally a public body set up to prevent Islamic terrorism, end up preventing or monitoring their own citizens for far-right extremism, which back in February was determined to include reading Orwell, watching The Thick of It, which is a show that I think is 15 years old tops.
So if you're reading Orwell, you're supposed to be far right.
Yes.
Okay.
The self-avowed socialist, George Orwell, now far right, apparently, reading Shakespeare. So having any level of culture or understanding of your literary cultural heritage, racist now. Reading Douglas Murray, because he wrote The Strange Death of
Yeah.
Europe, he's like the only one that I could even remotely consider maybe, but even then he's not far right. He's nowhere
No.
near far right. He's a neocon. This is he's written a book about why we need neoconservatism. He's not a far right figure in any planet. And others inciting texts, which also included Tolkien. So once again, anything that could be remotely considered to be outside of the progressive paradigm that we live in.
Yeah.
That's what suddenly becomes far right. So let's just carry on down here a little bit. So here's this quote tweet from iHypocrite. The UK will treat online images of immigrants crossing the channel as a criminal offence. Free country?
Why?
Well, because you might be racist against the doctors and nurses.
Did you see Diane Abbott's tweet?
Yeah,
About-
we mentioned that on the podcast
Yeah,
yesterday.
that
That
is,
was hilarious. You know, I said, you know, Diane Abbott's kickstarting a
Surely-
new run as a BNP member.
Yeah. Surely
presumably.
she's done that. You know, she's sharing online images.
They all share it, but once again,
Yeah.
it depends on whose side you're on.
Mm.
If you are on the side of the progressives, then anything you do, you can say anything and it will be interpreted with the utmost good faith.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas if you are not, then anything and everything that you do will be interpreted in such a way that to make you a criminal. That's friend and enemy on pure display right there. The government plans to use the online safety bill to crack down on online misogyny, but Tory peers are pushing for the law to go further with the inclusion of legal requirements that social media firms must prevent online violence and abuse against women. How they will do that, I've no idea. But I have actually, once again, covered the online safety bill. I don't want to go into as much detail with it as I did the Equality Act of 2010, especially because it's not actually gone through yet. But suffice to say that the parts of the legislation that are important that will be that all online activity, if this goes through, will be regulated by Ofcom. Have you ever appeared on a network and channel that has to be regulated by Ofcom?
No.
It's not fun. It's really not fun. They have so much red tape to
Yeah.
make it impossible to do anything. And once again, it can be interpreted in any number of ways. It will also criminalize legal but harmful speech. What does that mean?
I think the main challenge is to make people see behind the vocabulary, because we constantly have a virtue signaling vocabulary that is
Yeah.
we are bombarded with. But
Mm.
the question is, what is the reality behind it?
Yeah.
Because words are used to sugarcoat actual practices.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main challenge. How do you get people to look past the slogan, past the terms that are used?
Well, and these are the real victims of cancel culture and the culture war. You know, we talk about celebrities getting cancelled, but it's real ordinary people behind the scenes getting arrested and flagged for free speech. You know, these are the people that we should be speaking about.
Yeah, and look at this as well. So here's another one. So the Equalities Act, the bill extends a third party. This was a bill that was being put through earlier this year. Third party liability at every type of unwanted conduct prohibited by the Equality Act, including overheard comments. So you're walking down the street, you hear somebody say something that you think is a bit untoward, you can call the police.
This reminds me of the Age of Terror. In
Oh,
the
yeah.
French Revolution, where it was just hearsay, was guaranteed to
Yeah.
have your head chopped off.
Yeah, that's the one step away we are is
Yeah.
the fact that they've not got the guillotines out, because unlike in the French Revolution, even our elites who are in charge aren't honest enough to just start killing us at this
Yeah, no,
point.
yeah.
At least it would be more honest if they
But
did just break out the guillotine.
Imagine the gossip these people like. If it's just overheard comments. Usually
Yeah.
you have the presumption of innocence.
Yeah.
At least in the Western world, there is such a thing, or there was such a thing as a presumption of innocence. Now hearsay is enough to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, hearsay, once again, Ubisoft partnered with police to jail gamers for their in-game speech.
Oh, there'll be a lot of that.
Well, yeah.
Game-
How far back are we going? Because if so, I've got some pretty bad Modern Warfare 2 sessions.
Some
that
usernames.
I need to go back and see if I can just erase from ever happening. I'm going to need some kind of genie in a bottle so that I can reverse time to make sure some things were never said. I need to go back and make sure that when I was playing Halo 3 with my friends on the sofa, that I don't say some very hurtful comments, which got a good laugh at the time. It's just bants at the time. Now, apparently, I could be arrested for it. What else have we got down here? So we've got Andrew Doyle talking about the public order bill. We've already gone over that this podcast. We had the Roald Dahl situation earlier this year. A lot of this will be stuff that we've already covered on the podcast and already spoken about in great detail, but just putting it all together really makes you remember that we're the country that brought the Magna Carta into existence. King John had to sign the Magna Carta to prevent him from tyrannizing people. The Civil War happened over the potential threat of a king tyrannizing his subjects. And what's happened? The parliamentarians that got in charge of the government afterwards, that's the very system that they set up afterwards, has been used to continually terrorize the citizens as we've been going on.
I think
Stuart
again,
should have won.
This is an issue of the vocabulary behind the action, because you regularly have in the let's say sphere of politics, you have power, the use and abuse of power, and you have the rhetoric people throw in order to justify their use of power and criticize their opponents. So this is a big discussion.
Oh, it is.
We'll have it at some point.
Yes, we will. What else have we got down here? I'll just keep scrolling, and we'll just, when everybody's dead inside, we can stop, all right? The beatings will continue until morale improves. As award-winning author Kate Clancy reveals she was told she couldn't refer to the Taliban as terrorists in her book because now they govern Afghanistan. Leading figures in the publishing industry warn that sensitive readers are destroying the art of writing. I'd imagine a lot of these people within the publishing industry are the sorts that have actively cheered along these sorts of things up until now, until it comes to your doorstep. So that's what we often have as well. We have people who are more than happy to engage in tyranny until all of a sudden it's on their doorstep. So they don't get much sympathy in my mind. We had this person who was arrested for silently praying outside an abortion clinic. This is not a case where a guy was screaming abuse or harassing women as they were going in. He was just silently praying. Sorry, you're off to jail, mate.
It's offensive to some.
It is offensive to some. So that
I can see the rationale behind it.
Yeah. We've got the non-crime hate incidents. Are you aware of this, Freya?
No.
So non-crime hate incidents are things that aren't technically illegal, but could qualify as some kind of offensive speech. Right. So people can report you for it, and it will get noted down in a police file. And from that point onwards, that can be referred to if people are doing a DPS check for you. Or a DBS check, not DPS. A DBS check in the UK, it can be referred to by employers when they're looking.
That makes no sense. Yes. They admit that it is not a crime.
Well, this is like legal but harmful speech that was included in the first few drafts of the Online Harms Bill.
Have you seen those ads on the tube for if you're looking at someone on the tube, you can call the police for section?
Eyes down, citizen.
Yeah. So is that what's that under? Is that a hate crime?
You would probably be prosecuted under some level of harassment law. I don't know exactly which one it would fall under. It'd probably be a public order because they would probably classify it as some kind of harassing behavior.
It's assault. Yeah.
Yeah. I was told I didn't have ethnic resources. The only black teacher at a predominantly white college was admonished for not doing enough to promote equality and diversity in class. While Betty Knight challenged that finding, she was racially harassed. So this is interesting. This will probably be another outgrowth of the massive compliance departments that have been built into this. They know, we've only got one black teacher, so how are we going to get around the EHRC knocking on our door? We'll force her to be more ethnic in the things that she teaches to make sure that we can look as though we're not having disproportionate impacts against the people who are coming and joining our schools. These are the kinds of ridiculous measures people go to comply with the UK laws that we have right now. Tavistock scandal, we all remember that. What else have we got down here? Police commissioner criticizes her own force over social media arrests. People shouldn't be being arrested unless you actually post a picture of someone's front door with the caption, I'm here and I'm going to kill you. It's, Sam Hyde and Hassan Pike are friends. Unless you do something like that, you shouldn't be getting arrested for social media posts that you put out there. Absolutely ridiculous. Oh, look, neo-fascist rallies outside of hotels. People who come out and go to the hotels and say, we don't want illegal migrants roughing up our town. Racist, you're a neo-fascist, etc., etc. We could just keep going. Gay pride, cars.
Sorry, I had enough.
Yeah, you've had enough. You've had enough. Well, I've had enough as well. The people of England have had enough, Stelios. And God damn it, we need to start repealing these laws. There needs to be massive legal challenges put against when these cases get forward. We need to get legions of right-wing lawyers who actually have a set of balls on them to start creating legal challenges against these kind of laws. Because realistically, the only thing that they're doing is proving once and for all that the UK is not a free country. We are not a free nation. We are not a free peoples. We are constantly being tyrannized by our own government.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the premium articles, this one, Star Citizen, and The Quest for the Future, with an audio track for Silver and Gold tiers. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you, and goodbye.